Amelia didn't understand. She had never been in a world of billion-dollar engines, of engineers who spoke in incomprehensible equations, of boardroom egos and impossible deadlines. Her world was smaller, a cramped apartment, mounting medical bills, and the relentless hum of chemotherapy treatments that left her body aching and her savings evaporating faster than she could count. She was a single mother, a woman who cleaned offices at night not because she loved it, but because every extra dollar could mean the difference between another treatment and another unpaid bill. Tonight she was just Amelia, a cleaner. But Harrison Thorne saw more than that. He saw a target, a human pincushion for his frustration. His engineers, brilliant minds with degrees that had cost millions to cultivate, had failed him yet again. The $2 billion Prometheus engine had once more defied all their efforts. And Harrison, itching for a way to vent, had spotted Amelia. "You there," he barked, finger stabbing through the air like a dagger. Amelia froze, hand hovering over the surface she was cleaning. Every eye in the lab turned toward her. She felt 100 judgments, all burning her cheeks. "Amelia, what do you think of our little problem here?" Harrison leaned forward, expensive leather shoes clicking ominously on the floor. His voice was not just questioning, it was predatory. Amelia's mind raced. She wanted nothing more than to finish, collect her pay, and leave. "Sir, I wouldn't know anything about that. I just clean," she stammered. Harrison's smile widened, cold and cruel. "Of course you do. But let's pretend for a moment, Amelia, that you are not just a maid. Let's pretend you have the answer. Perhaps we don't need PhDs after all." He turned to his team, his voice dripping sarcasm. "Dr. Miles, shall we let the cleaning lady try?" The engineers shuffled, uneasy. Some snickered nervously, others stared at their shoes. Amelia felt exposed, humiliated, small. Her heart raced. She wished the floor would open up and swallow her. "Ridiculous," she whispered, almost inaudibly. "Ridiculous." Harrison's tone sharpened. He leaned closer, voice lowering conspiratorially, yet loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'll tell you what's ridiculous. Spending $20 million to learn nothing. At least your idea would be cheaper." He straightened, voice booming again. "Here is my offer, Amelia. Fix my engine and I will give you $100 million." The words echoed in the lab. A gasp swept through the engineers. It was absurd, a joke. A cruel, impossible, theatrical joke meant to mock her. Amelia felt her knees weaken. $100 million? Her daughter's future. Her medical bills, her life. But this wasn't about money anymore. It was about humiliation. I can't, she stammered. "Of course you can't," Harrison said, dismissive. "Now get back to your work. At least you're good at that." And just like that, the cruelty seemed to have ended. But then, a voice, soft and clear, cut through the tension. "My mommy can't, but I can." All eyes swung toward the doorway. Chloe Hayes, Amelia's daughter, no more than 10 years old, stepped forward. Blonde hair tied simply, a pink jacket slightly worn, clutching a tattered teddy bear. Her blue eyes, bright and unflinching, fixed on Harrison. Harrison's initial reaction was laughter. A booming, derisive sound that bounced off the lab's high ceilings. First the maid, now her child. "What is this, a comedy show?" But Chloe didn't flinch. She didn't waver. She spoke with a quiet authority, the kind of certainty that silences a room. "No, sir." "I'm going to listen to it." The room went silent. Engineers gaped. Amelia's hands trembled, instinctively reaching for her daughter. Harrison's curiosity was piqued. The absurdity of it intrigued him. "Fine," he said slowly, a sinister grin returning. "The offer stands. $100 million if she succeeds. Fail, and both of you lose everything." Amelia's heart thudded. "No, Chloe, stop!" she whispered desperately, but Chloe shook her head. "It's okay, Mommy," she said softly. "Grandpa Eli taught me. You just have to be quiet and listen. The metal, it always tells you where it hurts." Amelia's breath caught. Her father had been a mechanic, long past now, and in that small voice, the lessons of a lifetime echoed. She had never expected her daughter to step into this high-tech battlefield. Chloe approached the Prometheus engine, a monstrous steel giant looming over her. To the engineers it was incomprehensible. To Chloe it was familiar. Her small hands pressed against its cold metal, eyes closed. She breathed in the silent language of the machine. Grandpa Eli had taught her that machines had a heartbeat, a rhythm. Metal fatigue wasn't just numbers on a screen. It was a whisper, a subtle vibration, a memory encoded in steel. While other children played, Chloe learned to listen, to feel, to understand. The engine roared to life under Dr. Miles's hesitant hand. The sound was deafening, a roar of power and impending failure. Engineers flinched. Harrison tapped his foot impatiently. But Chloe filtered it all. Her mind shrank to the whispers beneath the roar. There it was, the anomaly, a subtle tremor. A hidden voice screaming silently beneath the machine's hum. "Turn it off," she commanded. And suddenly silence. A hush swept over the room, heavier than the roar itself. She had found it. The rogue vibration, a microscopic imperfection invisible to every sensor in the room. Harrison's smugness faltered. His eyes narrowed, curiosity now fighting with incredulity. "Impossible," he muttered. Chloe ignored him, consulting the only person she trusted, Dr. Reed, observer, physicist, meticulous and impartial. Dr. Reed's eyes lit with genuine curiosity. The anomaly had a voice. And Chloe, trained in the old ways of metal and intuition, could hear it. Not with software, not with sensors, but with the hands and mind of a mechanic born to listen. "This isn't software," she whispered. "It's not design, it's..." "The part." The engineers exchanged incredulous looks. Harrison's cruel laughter vanished. The game had changed. A 10-year-old girl had entered a world of billion-dollar machinery and declared a truth that technology had missed, and the challenge had only just begun. The lab was silent. Not the ordinary quiet of machines at rest, but a suffocating, expectant hush. Every engineer, every observer, and even Harrison himself had been drawn into a moment suspended between disbelief and awe. Chloe stood near the engine, her small hand brushing lightly against the cold metal casing. Her eyes were closed, her ears straining. She had been taught by a master, her grandfather, and she was not about to let the lessons fade in the high-ceilinged steel and glass monstrosity that Harrison Thorne had made his playground. "Focus," she whispered to herself. The hum of the ventilation system, the faint flicker of fluorescent lights, the impatient tapping of Harrison's expensive shoes, she filtered them all out. She was listening to the Prometheus engine, not as a machine built from cutting-edge alloys and precision tolerances, but as a living thing. Every engine had a rhythm, a pulse, and this one was whispering a secret. Dr. Reed crouched a few feet away, her sharp eyes following Chloe's movements. She had seen brilliance before, but never in a child so young. It wasn't imagination or wild guesswork. It was instinct honed by years of tutelage and exposure to the subtle music of machines. She had always trusted data, but she knew that some truths could only be felt. "Turn it on," Chloe said to Dr. Miles, her voice calm but commanding. Reluctantly, the engineer approached the control panel, fingers hovering over the activation sequence. Harrison's impatient nod spurred him on. With a mechanical whir, the Prometheus engine roared to life once more. It was a deafening, powerful sound, a cacophony of precision, tension, and potential disaster. The engineers stiffened, each calculating the exact moment when their simulations predicted catastrophic failure. Harrison's grin, once cruel and self-assured, tightened slightly. He could not yet dismiss the audacity of a child standing before a $2 billion engine and daring to diagnose it. Chloe did not flinch. Her small frame seemed insignificant compared to the massive steel beast, yet she moved as though the engine were an old friend. Her hands hovered above its surface, fingertips brushing lightly, almost reverently. She tilted her head, her brow furrowed. Then she felt it. A subtle, discordant vibration, almost imperceptible, hidden beneath the roar. It was not part of the main harmonic. It was a whisper in a storm. "Stop," she instructed, and the engineers scrambled to comply. The roar died back into silence, leaving a tense vacuum in the room. "What is it?" Harrison barked, leaning forward. His voice betrayed a flicker of unease. "There's a secondary vibration," Chloe said, pointing to a specific spot near the base of the coolant assembly. Her small finger trembled slightly, but her confidence was unmistakable. "It's very small, but it's there." "And it's not in the right rhythm," Dr. Miles's face paled. "Impossible," he muttered. "Our sensors, our calculations, there is nothing wrong there. Every model, every stress test says this is flawless." Chloe tilted her head slightly, closing her eyes again. "The sensors are listening for earthquakes," she said softly. "They can't hear the whisper." Dr. Reed's gaze shifted to a secondary monitor displaying the raw audio input from the lab's acoustic sensors. A tiny spike, so small it had been dismissed by every algorithm and software filter, was there. Less than 1/100th of a second, almost invisible against the cacophony of the engine. The anomaly was real. The engineers exchanged incredulous glances. Harrison's cruel amusement faltered. His carefully constructed world, one built on credentials, degrees, and hundreds of millions of dollars in equipment, had been interrupted by intuition and observation. Chloe opened her eyes and stepped closer to the engine. She was methodical, precise, yet graceful, tracing the surface with her hands. She found the point where the rogue vibration originated. It was subtle, a shiver in the metal amplified by a mounting bolt that served as a tuning fork, transmitting the hidden tremor throughout the assembly. "The crack is microscopic," she explained, her voice steady. "It's in the alloy underneath the bolt. You can't see it, but it's there. When the engine runs, the metal heats up and the crack grows. That's why your sensors don't catch it. It's too small. But it sings when under stress." Harrison's face went from amusement to disbelief, then to sharp curiosity. "Prove it," he said, his voice almost a growl. The challenge had moved beyond a theatrical game. This was now a test of reality itself. Chloe glanced around, spotting an old-fashioned mechanic's stethoscope tucked away in a corner. She requested it, and an assistant, looking confused and fearful of the absurdity of the situation, fetched it. Chloe placed the earpieces in her small ears, the large metal bell pressing against the engine casing. She was a child, yes, but the instrument transformed her into a conduit for the machine's voice. "Turn it on." "Leave it on," she instructed. The engineers held their collective breath as the engine came alive again. The roar was overwhelming, but Chloe's focus filtered through it. She heard the whisper, the tiny tick of the crack beneath the bolt. It was rhythmic, precise, a heartbeat hidden beneath the tumultuous symphony of the engine. Dr. Reed leaned forward, fascinated. "She's correct," she said softly. "The spike exists. Our algorithms dismissed it as background noise, but she has identified it by ear. Harrison Thorne, the man who had built empires on ego and intellect, stood frozen. His mind raced. He had thrown 100 million at a child as a joke. He had mocked her mother. But now, confronted with the undeniable proof of her insight, his arrogance clashed with reality. The child had identified what his multi-million-dollar technology had missed. Chloe didn't pause to bask in triumph. She followed the vibration, moving around the engine, listening, tracing, and identifying. Every step brought clarity. The rogue vibration was not random. It was telling a story of stress, of a material defect, a memory in the metal that could not be seen, only heard. She found the precise location. A minute fissure smaller than anyone could detect without her grandfather's method. It was subtle but deadly. A single mounting bolt acted as an amplifier, transmitting the imperfection signal throughout the assembly. The engineer's jaws dropped. Harrison's face was pale, disbelief etched into every line. "This isn't a software problem," Chloe said, voice unwavering. "It's the alloy, the material. The crack is tiny, but it's enough to destabilize the system under load. The computer can't see it. Only listening can." Dr. Miles swallowed hard, the realization dawning on him. Every simulation, every model, every sensor had failed to detect the flaw, and yet the diagnosis was simple in principle, if not in execution. Harrison's voice was quiet now, a dangerous low growl. "Get your tools. I want that bolt out. Now!" The engineers scrambled, retrieving specialized wrenches, inspection cameras, and precision instruments. Chloe remained focused, calm, a small figure commanding respect not by title or degree, but by the undeniable proof of her skill. Amelia clutched her daughter's hand, trembling. She couldn't comprehend the scope of the moment. Her little girl, 10 years old, was standing at the nexus of wealth, science, and human ego. And she was not afraid. Dr. Reed knelt beside Chloe, her sharp eyes studying the girl's movements. "Are you certain?" she asked gently. Chloe nodded. "The crack is there. It's a memory in the metal, tightened too much once," hidden beneath the alloy. I can hear it, I can feel it. It's the weak spot. The room held its collective breath. Harrison's empire of logic and money was being challenged by intuition and experience, condensed into the mind of a child. And no one could look away. The challenge was no longer theoretical. It was now a question of proof, of action, of whether a 10-year-old girl could undo what technology had missed and prove that instinct, trained over generations, could outperform billions in equipment and expertise. The Prometheus engine continued to hum, unaware of the small hands poised to reveal its secrets. The clock ticked. Every second brought tension, disbelief, and the inevitability of revelation. Chloe Hayes, the girl who had listened to metal as if it were alive, was about to prove the impossible. The room was electric, suspended between disbelief and anticipation. Harrison Thorne's $2 billion Prometheus engine roared like a caged beast, its raw power filling every corner of the lab. Engineers fidgeted, their expensive suits a mask over minds running in panic. Their charts, sensors, and simulations had failed where a child's ears had succeeded. The impossible was now real. Chloe Hayes, a 10-year-old, had found what their multi-million-dollar technology could not detect. Chloe's small hands rested lightly on the engine casing. Stethoscope pressed against the metal, her blue eyes closed as she filtered out everything except the heartbeat of the machine. The roar of the Prometheus was a symphony to her ears, but within it was a single discordant note, a tiny ping, tick, 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 so subtle that anyone else would have dismissed it as random noise. She followed the sound like a thread through a labyrinth. Each step she took, each careful movement of the stethoscope, brought her closer to the hidden flaw, the tiny fissure in the alloy that had caused countless failures in simulation. "Turn it off," she said suddenly. Dr. Miles, hands trembling, cut the engine. Silence fell over the room. It was not the absence of sound that startled the engineers, but the sudden awareness of how wrong they had been. Harrison's face was pale, his mind racing. The child had seen what they could not. Dr. Reed moved closer, her eyes narrowed in concentration. "Show me," she said softly. Chloe traced the surface of the engine slowly, methodically, her fingers almost floating over the cold metal. Every groove, every seam, every joint told her a story. She paused near the base where the thick silver cables fed into the coolant assembly. The tiny vibration emanated from beneath the bolt head, amplified like a whisper made audible. She pressed her finger gently against it. The metal shivered beneath her touch, almost imperceptibly, and yet it was enough. "It's here," she said, her voice small but unwavering. "The crack is microscopic, hidden beneath the bolt. You can't see it, but it's there. The metal remembers when it's been stressed, and this part is crying out under load. It's not a design flaw. It's a material flaw." Dr. Miles' face drained of color. "That's impossible." Every component was custom-milled, stress-tested, and certified. The alloy tolerances are perfect within a nanometer. There is no flaw. Chloe opened her eyes, their blue depth calm and certain. "The sensors can't hear it. But the engine can. You need to listen differently." Harrison, silent for once, stared at the girl. The challenge had shifted from theater to reality. The joke of $100 million had become a living test of intuition versus calculation, instinct versus technology. He had unleashed chaos in his lab, and now he could not contain it. "Get the tools," he said, voice low and dangerous. "Remove that bolt. I want proof." Engineers scrambled, fetching wrenches, cameras, and precision instruments. Dr. Miles's hands shook as he prepared to disassemble the coolant assembly. Each tool gleamed under the harsh white light, futuristic and precise. Yet it was a child's intuition guiding the operation. Chloe stood nearby, her small hand holding her mother's, grounding herself while focusing entirely on the task. Amelia's heart pounded. Her daughter, the little girl she had watched learn the language of engines in a dusty garage, was about to confront the world's most advanced machine. The wrench clicked onto the bolt with a sharp metallic sound. Slowly, carefully, Dr. Miles applied pressure. The bolt resisted at first, the alloy steel groaning under torque. Then, with a faint but unmistakable crack, the first seal gave way. A shiver ran through the assembly. Every engineer froze. Harrison's lips parted slightly in shock. "Keep going," Chloe instructed. Her voice was a whisper in the tension-heavy air. "Steady, follow the sound." The bolt turned inch by inch. Beneath it, the hidden fissure revealed itself, a thin, nearly invisible crack that ran through the alloy. It was the reason for the secondary vibration, the rogue signal that sensors had missed. The crack was tiny, almost laughably small, yet it held the key to the engine's repeated failures. Dr. Reed knelt beside the assembly, examining the crack through a magnified camera feed. "The girl is right," she said quietly. "It's a microfissure, a memory crack in the metal. Under heat and stress, it amplifies and causes instability. We would never have detected it without this intuition." The engineers were stunned. Dr. Miles's hands trembled as he held the removed bolt, staring at the microscopic imperfection beneath it. Every calculation, every algorithm, had failed to see what a child had found by listening. Harrison Thorne's mind raced. He had thrown money, technology, and ego into this problem. And now, a 10-year-old girl had outperformed the best minds he had employed. Chloe's eyes scanned the engine, her mind moving from diagnosis to solution. "The bolt is fine. The crack is in the block," she explained. "We need to relieve the stress. Support the assembly differently and we can prevent the vibration from growing." Harrison's voice was almost inaudible. "And you can fix it?" Chloe nodded. "I can, but I need quiet, full focus. No interruptions." The engineers exchanged skeptical glances, but Dr. Reed stepped forward. "We follow her lead. Document every step. This is an experiment and she's leading it." Chloe set to work. She instructed Dr. Miles to carefully realign support braces, use tension-distributing washers, and adjust the mounting of the coolant assembly. Every movement was calculated, precise yet intuitive. She guided the engineers, teaching them what her grandfather had taught her. Machines had voices, and if you listened, they would tell you their needs. Minutes passed like hours. Sweat beaded on Harrison's forehead. Amelia held her breath, gripping the edge of a workbench. The engineers worked under Chloe's quiet authority, following the hand gestures and whispered instructions of a 10-year-old prodigy. Every adjustment brought the engine closer to balance, the rogue vibration fading like a storm passing. "Almost there," Chloe murmured. Her hands hovered over the casing, feeling the engine's heartbeat. "Now, listen." Dr. Miles activated the engine for the 4th time. The Prometheus roared, but this time it was different. The discordant tick, the rogue vibration, was gone. The engine hummed in perfect rhythm, stable and powerful. The room erupted, not in applause but in stunned silence. The impossible had been achieved. Harrison Thorne stood frozen, staring at the engine. 2 billion in technology, the best minds, every sensor and algorithm, had failed. And yet, a 10-year-old girl had listened, felt, and corrected what no one else could. Dr. Reed approached Chloe, kneeling beside her. "You've done it," she said softly. "You've diagnosed and stabilized the Prometheus. How did you know where to start?" Chloe smiled faintly. "You have to listen, really listen. Machines talk. They have memory. And if you pay attention, you can hear their story." Amelia rushed forward, hugging her daughter tightly. "Chloe, you did it." "You really did it!" Her voice trembled with pride and disbelief. Harrison's face was unreadable, a storm of awe and reluctant admiration. For the first time, his carefully constructed ego had met something it could not manipulate or control. He realized that brilliance was not always defined by degrees, credentials, or money. It could be hidden, quiet, and entirely unexpected. The engineers, still stunned, finally broke into murmurs. Dr. Miles looked at Chloe with newfound respect, a hesitant smile breaking through his skepticism. "You've saved us months of work," he admitted quietly. Chloe turned to him, eyes bright. "I didn't save anyone. I just listened." Harrison Thorne exhaled slowly. The silence of the lab was profound. The Prometheus engine now thrummed steadily, a testament to intuition over ego, observation over technology, and the extraordinary mind of a child who had been taught to hear what others could not. Amelia held her daughter close, pride and relief mingling with tears. Harrison, for all his wealth and power, felt a strange humility creeping into the edges of his mind. He had expected to humiliate a maid and her daughter. Instead, he had witnessed something extraordinary, something unrepeatable. Chloe Hayes had not only found the flaw in a $2 billion engine, she had redefined what it meant to truly listen, to understand, and to solve a problem that no one else could. The Prometheus engine sat in quiet majesty, no longer a wild beast roaring out of control, but a harmonized colossus humming with steady, contained energy. The lab, moments ago a cacophony of skepticism and fear, now felt almost sacred in its silence. Engineers and observers alike stared in awe, eyes wide, mouths slightly open, as if the room itself had shifted in gravity. Harrison Thorne remained rooted to the floor, his mind a whirlwind of disbelief and grudging admiration. The words he had hurled like weapons moments before, mockery, threats, absurd challenges, felt hollow in the presence of this child's unshakable focus and quiet genius. The $100 million joke, meant to humiliate, now hung in the air like a contract that was no longer absurd, but very real. Dr. Reed, calm and meticulous, moved to the center of the lab. Her hands held a tablet that had been documenting the entire experiment, from Chloe's first touch to the final stabilization. She turned it to Harrison and Dr. Miles, displaying waveform analyses, thermal maps, and annotated diagrams. Every sensor, every automated system had missed the secondary vibration. Every algorithm had failed, and yet here it was, captured in a single intuitive act. "Mr. Thorne," Dr. Reed said, voice firm yet respectful, "what this child has accomplished cannot be overstated. She has identified a micro-fissure, diagnosed its impact on the assembly, and guided the correction with no formal training. The Prometheus is now stable. Your engineer's simulations, all your advanced diagnostics failed to detect this. She succeeded where billions of dollars and years of expertise did not." Harrison swallowed hard. His jaw clenched, but he did not speak. The room was thick with tension, part admiration, part embarrassment, part disbelief. Amelia, standing just behind Chloe, felt her daughter's hand clutch hers with pride and reassurance. She tried to catch Harrison's gaze, searching for any hint of empathy, but his face remained unreadable. Dr. Miles finally found his voice. His professional pride had been bruised, but he could not deny the truth. I need to verify the adjustment," he admitted, his tone cautious, almost reverent. "We'll need to run the engine through a full test cycle under controlled conditions. But if it holds, then this is unprecedented." Chloe tilted her head, her expression composed, even in the face of such monumental attention. "It will hold," she said simply. "The crack is stabilized. The stress has been redistributed. Listen." She placed her hands lightly on the engine casing, closing her eyes. The steady hum beneath her fingers confirmed what she had already known. A murmur rippled through the engineers. They had spent years mastering calculations, algorithms, and simulations, and yet they now witnessed the power of intuition, of listening rather than analyzing. Harrison felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. Humility, perhaps, though he would never admit it aloud. He had underestimated the quiet brilliance of this child. Dr. Reed stepped closer to Chloe, examining her posture and technique. "Your method," she said softly, "is what I would call experiential analysis. You are sensing the metal's memory, the residual stresses and imperfections imperceptible to even the most sensitive instruments. This is extraordinary. Where did you learn this?" Chloe glanced at her mother, then back at Dr. Reed. "My grandfather taught me," she said. "He said every machine has a voice. You just have to listen. If you pay attention, you'll hear the problem before it becomes a disaster." Amelia's heart swelled with pride and gratitude. Her daughter had not only saved a machine worth billions, but she had done so with the quiet lessons of love and patience, lessons her mother had never been able to afford in material form. Harrison, finally breaking the silence, walked slowly around the engine, eyes fixed on Chloe. His expression was unreadable, but his mind raced. He had imagined a performance, a spectacle to showcase his power over others. Instead, he had been confronted by raw, untrained genius. The implications were staggering. The arrogance that had defined his life, his reliance on money, credentials and authority, was being challenged by the simple, undeniable brilliance of a child. "Chloe," he said, voice low, almost cautious. "You realize what you have done? If your assessment holds under the full test cycle, the consequences are immense. You've effectively outperformed a team of engineers who collectively represent decades of experience." Chloe nodded, modest and composed. "I just listened," Harrison exhaled. His usual sharp demeanor softened, if only slightly. He turned to Dr. Miles and the engineers. "Document everything," he commanded. "Every step she took, every adjustment, every reading. I want proof. If she's right, I want it undeniable." The engineers complied, still shaken, yet meticulously recording every detail. Dr. Reed supervised, ensuring accuracy, her sharp eyes noting the child's methodology, the precision of her hands, and the intuition guiding each decision. Amelia remained at the back, holding her daughter's hand, tears threatening to spill. She wanted to rush forward, to hug Chloe, and tell her how proud she was, but she knew this was a moment that required restraint. This was Chloe's victory, not hers. Minutes passed. The tension in the lab was palpable. Every observer knew that the coming test cycle would either validate Chloe's diagnosis or expose it as impossible, a miracle that could not endure reality. Harrison stood near the control panel, finger hovering over the sequence, his mind a battlefield of skepticism and hope. Dr. Miles initiated the cycle. The engine came to life with a controlled roar. The vibrations were monitored, the sensors recording every micro-movement. Harrison, for all his wealth and intellect, watched like a spectator at a miracle. Chloe, still composed, placed her hands lightly on the engine, eyes closed, focusing entirely on the flow of energy, the hum of metal, the heartbeat of a machine she understood in ways no one else could. The minutes stretched, tension building. Then slowly, the rogue vibration disappeared. The Prometheus engine ran flawlessly, its hum steady, powerful, precise. The engineers checked their instruments again and again, but the readings confirmed what Chloe had known instinctively. The flaw had been neutralized. The engine was stable, its catastrophic failures prevented. A collective intake of breath filled the room. The impossible had been achieved. The $2 billion engine, the pinnacle of human engineering, had been saved by a 10-year-old girl's intuition. Amelia embraced her daughter, tears flowing freely. "You did it, Chloe," she whispered. "You really did it." Harrison, still standing, slowly nodded, his mind recalibrating. He had underestimated genius, overlooked intuition, and dismissed courage. The girl had not only succeeded, she had rewritten the rules of expertise in his lab. For the first time, he felt something unfamiliar, admiration, mixed with a bitter recognition of his own arrogance. Dr. Reed approached Harrison, her tone measured but firm. "You witnessed what many of your machines and algorithms could not reveal. The question now, Mr. Thorne, is whether you will acknowledge the value of intuition, of unconventional talent, even when it comes in the form of a child. The Prometheus runs because she listened, because she understood." Harrison stared at the engine, then at Chloe, then back at his engineers. The lab, once a place of hierarchy and ego, was now a testament to a simple truth. Brilliance is not measured by age, credentials, or authority, but by the courage to see and hear what others cannot. He exhaled slowly, a rare humility in his posture. "Prepare the reports," he said finally, voice steady but quiet. "Document every adjustment, every observation. This child has changed the way we understand this engine." Chloe smiled faintly, eyes still bright and focused. "I just listened," she repeated, echoing the lesson her grandfather had taught her. The engineers, finally grasping the enormity of the achievement, murmured among themselves. Dr. Miles, still recovering from the shock to his ego, looked at Chloe with awe. "You really did it," he said. Chloe glanced at her mother, then at the massive engine that now hummed in perfect rhythm. "I couldn't have done it without what Grandpa Eli taught me," she said, "and without my mom believing in me." Amelia hugged her daughter again, feeling pride, relief, and love all at once. She looked around at the engineers and the billion-dollar machinery, then back at Chloe. "You've done something extraordinary." "Baby," she whispered. Harrison, for all his wealth and experience, understood that the world had just shifted beneath his feet. He had intended to humiliate, to dominate, to control. Instead, he had been forced to witness genius in its purest, most unfiltered form. And he would never forget it. The Prometheus engine hummed steadily, a testament to listening, intuition, and courage. And Chloe Hayes, 10 years old, had proven that sometimes the smallest voice can solve the biggest problems. The lab was silent, save for the steady hum of the Prometheus engine, now running flawlessly, a symphony of metal and ingenuity. Engineers and observers alike stared at Chloe in stunned reverence, as if the impossible had been made tangible. The tension that had gripped the room for hours now transformed into awe. Amelia stood behind her daughter, tears streaming down her face, a mix of relief, pride, and sheer disbelief. Harrison Thorne, the billionaire whose life had been defined by control, power and ego, took a slow, deliberate step forward. His sharp eyes, which had once bored into Chloe with challenge and derision, now softened with a grudging respect. He looked at the 10-year-old, standing small yet monumental before the $2 billion engine, and realized something he had never admitted to himself. Brilliance does not obey authority, money, or age. He cleared his throat, the sound reverberating in the vast laboratory. "Chloe Hayes," he began, voice steady but carrying a weight that demanded attention. "You have accomplished what I, and every one of my engineers, could not. You have solved the Prometheus problem, not with simulations or software, but with intuition, patience, and courage. You have done what the world said was impossible." Chloe's blue eyes met his, calm yet unwavering. "I just listened," she said softly, repeating the lesson her grandfather had instilled in her. "The engine tells you what's wrong if you pay attention." A murmur spread across the room. Engineers exchanged looks, their years of study and calculations dwarfed by the simple, extraordinary truth of a child's insight. Dr. Reed, ever meticulous, stepped forward, tablet in hand, documenting the moment with precision. "I can confirm," she said, "every sensor, every diagnostic tool has verified the integrity of the Prometheus engine. It is stable, fully operational, and safe. The $100 million challenge, as Mr. Thorne offered, is met not by theory, not by coincidence, but by the deliberate, exact actions of this child." Amelia's hand trembled as she squeezed her daughter's shoulder. "Baby, you did it," she whispered, voice choked with emotion. "You really did it." Harrison's gaze shifted from Chloe to Amelia. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, the mother who had worked tirelessly, silently, unseen, burdened by debt, by medical bills, by a world that had never favored her. She had been the first to feel the stakes, the first to fear the humiliation he had intended as a lesson, yet she had remained steadfast in support of her daughter. A strange warmth began to penetrate Harrison's carefully constructed armor. "Amelia Hayes," he said finally, voice firm yet not cruel, "you have raised a remarkable child. She has exceeded every expectation, and in doing so, she has reminded us all that genius does not follow rules or titles. Your belief in her, your guidance, has mattered more than any of my engineers' PhDs." The room held its collective breath. Harrison's acknowledgement was not a performance, not a calculated gesture. It was real. A billionaire, long accustomed to bending the world to his will, had been confronted with a truth too powerful to ignore. Empathy, trust, and courage could achieve what authority alone never could. Dr. Miles approached cautiously, still trying to reconcile his professional pride with the undeniable reality of the engine's stabilization. "Sir, the child's methods, her intuition, is something we've never accounted for. This changes everything. We've been blind to subtle cues, reliant entirely on technology. But she has shown us a new way," Harrison nodded slowly. "Yes, and we will adapt. All of you," he said, gesturing to the engineers. "Take note. Observation, patience, and listening, these are as important as your degrees. Never underestimate intuition, even when it comes in the smallest form." Chloe, still clutching her mother's hand, looked around at the engineers and scientists. "The engine was just asking for help," she said softly. "You have to pay attention to what's alive, not just what's on a screen." The room was struck silent again, not with tension, but with a profound awareness. It was a lesson that would linger in the minds of every person present. Brilliance is not confined to expectation, and genius can arise in the most unexpected forms. Harrison finally reached for a small card from his pocket. He held it out to Amelia. "As promised," he said, voice steady, "the $100 million is yours. You've earned it not because of a machine, but because your daughter taught us something no software, no algorithm, and no fortune could ever teach: the power of listening. Of patience, of courage. Amelia blinked, stunned, as the weight of the words sank in. She had imagined the offer as a cruel joke, a public humiliation. Instead, it was now a tangible reality, a gift that could erase her medical debts, secure her daughter's future, and transform their lives entirely. She took the card, her hands shaking, tears flowing freely. "Thank you," she whispered, voice choked. "Thank you." Harrison's eyes softened as he looked at Chloe. "And you, little one, have reminded me why I built this company in the first place. Not to show off wealth or power, but to solve the impossible. You have reminded me that even the smallest voice can change everything." Chloe smiled faintly, her eyes bright with the quiet certainty of one who had done what needed to be done. Amelia hugged her tightly, whispering words of love and pride. "You've done more than anyone could imagine, baby. You've done more than I ever thought possible." Dr. Reed stepped forward and, with a respectful nod to Chloe, said, "I will be documenting this in a formal report for the Oversight Committee. What you've accomplished today is not just extraordinary, it is historic. The methods you've used, the precision and intuition, will influence engineering practices for decades to come." The engineers, still in disbelief, began quietly discussing Chloe's method, realizing the lessons that lay hidden in her simple, effective approach. Harrison listened, his mind a tumult of respect, introspection, and a faint growing sense of transformation. Amelia finally looked at him, hope and cautious gratitude in her eyes. "Sir, will you help us make sure this is real? The money, the support." Harrison exhaled slowly. "It will be real. Every promise kept. No trick, no humiliation, no games. You have my word." For the first time that day, he felt something he had not allowed himself to feel in years. Humility, tempered with admiration, and a recognition that life's greatest lessons often arrive in forms we cannot predict. Chloe, the child who had listened to a machine and healed it, now stood as a symbol of courage, intuition, and boundless potential. Amelia held her daughter's hand tightly, knowing that the life they had once feared would be one of hope, opportunity, and security. The Prometheus engine continued its steady hum, a reminder of the triumph of focus, love, and intuition. Harrison turned to leave the lab, a billionaire forever changed by a 10-year-old girl and the quiet, indomitable spirit of her mother. Outside, the city lights shone, unaware of the miracle that had just unfolded within a sterile laboratory. Inside, a family held each other, hearts full, life transformed. The impossible had been achieved. And in the quiet hum of the engine, Chloe Hayes had left a mark that would echo far beyond the walls of Thorne Industries, a mark of genius, courage, and the extraordinary power of listening.